Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Career Changers. Our guest today is Kash Rocheleau, CEO of Icon Foods. We will discuss her career, upward mobility, and her mission of working on clean label sugar reduction. Hi, Kash, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start with your career. What was your dream job when you were a child?
I wanted to be a physical therapist. I was very active as a child and young adult, and the body was just super fascinating to me. And when I got to college, I struggled in chemistry, which was a required course. So I looked through the lens with negative intent and started self-doubting. If I can't get through this class, how am I going to get through undergrad? And so I pivoted into to business.
What did you decide to study?
Mm. So I received my undergraduate in business management during that same education span. And from there, once I found my footing in business and my career, I went on to get my master's in accounting and finance. Business is very general and you can really go anywhere with it. So I waited to get my master's until I figured out what I really wanted to do. But with that said, I'm super grateful for the education that I have backing me, but I learned more about real world and business.
And so, how did you start your professional life after this year in education?
So I got my degree in business and still had an infatuation with the body and fitness. And so my first job was working as a personal trainer as an independent contractor. And I loved that I was in control of my schedule and that I was able to help people in their health and fitness goals, an environment that was comfortable to me. But over time, I quickly burned out due to the fact that personal training, you become a therapist and relations start to cultivate due to this intimate setting that you're in a person's really personal aspect of their life. And I found that after about 5 years, I was exhausted when I got home with nothing left to pour back into my husband or my kids, and found in the morning that I had some apprehension of going into work. And so it was at that point that I realized that it just wasn't the best fit for me long term, and it wasn't the best for people that entrusted me on this journey that they were in. And so I stepped down from that industry.
That's really interesting. And what initially sparked your interest in the food industry and led you to become CEO of Icon Foods?
I wouldn't say that there was an initial spark. After leaving the fitness world, I was fortunate enough to take some time off and really figure out what I wanted to do, how I wanted to spend my time, and I was fortunate enough to spend some time with my kids and husband. And I realized quickly that I was not designed to be a stay-at-home mom. I love my kids. It was just not a good fit for me. And so I wasn't sure where I wanted to be. I just wanted to be out of the house. And Icon Foods was looking for an executive assistant to the CFO. And I really didn't know much about finance outside of the finance classes that I had taken for my undergrad. But I figured as an assistant, you can't really mess it up, right? You can get a chance to get into the business world and the finance side of things. And having a deep rooted background in health and wellness and fitness, I felt like I had the best of both worlds. I was using my business degree and working in an industry that is helping the food industry for the better. There's just something so different about working in an industry or in a business where you truly believe what is being put out. Gives you a special level of buy-in, I would say.
By starting to working in the industry, specifically in your company, you discover what is your mission today, that is clean label sugar reduction.
Yeah, so we do all natural sweeteners. Everything that we do is naturally derived in nature. We don't do any chemical-based ingredients. And a big driver for that is that metabolic disease is a huge issue in the US and the world. And it greatly raises the risk of developing diabetes, heart disease, some cases stroke. And I believe that a big factor in that is sugar intake, and food labels can be tricky to read and even misleading by masking sugar as things like corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, fruit juice. And so we believes that everyday consumers have a right to know when they're consuming sugar and that they should have the ability to make informed choices about what they consume. And we also believe that you should be able to indulge in those decadent treats without raising your blood sugar unnecessarily, but also not sacrificing taste. Our real mission is really fighting the metabolic disease epidemic that we're experiencing in the world right now.
Mm. And what are some innovative approaches to reducing sugar without compromising taste or quality?
Yeah, so I would say that sugar is such a complex ingredient and it hits the mouth from tip of tongue to back of throat. So I'd say that the first approach to reducing sugar would be to find a blend, and you can work with food formulators, food scientists, but sugar is typically known as a sweetener, but it's also a bulking agent as well as providing that mouthfeel that I just mentioned. And it participates in Maillard, which is the caramelization effect that you would see on like a creme brulee or when we start to caramelize sugar. And so there's not really another ingredient that occurs naturally that acts like sugar in all aspects. Using a blend typically helps for this. So one of our biggest ingredients, or two of our biggest ingredients, would be erythritol and allulose. However, they're 70% as sweet as sugar. And so you can use them as that bulking agent. But in order to bring the sweetness up to parity with sugar, you can add something like stevia or monk fruit or thalmatin, which will help provide more of that full mouthfeel effect, as well as bringing the sugar or the sweetness up to a sugar parity.
And what are some of the biggest challenges you face in promoting and implementing clean label sugar reduction in the industry?
I would say the biggest challenge is consumer knowledge and getting that knowledge out to the consumers.
So let's talk about upward mobility, something you experience in your career journey. Can you share some key moments that define your career path and help you achieve upward mobility?
When I started with Icon Foods, I started as an executive assistant to the CFO. And shortly after, about 6 months later, the CFO at the time had to leave for personal reasons and saw something in me that I couldn't quite yet see in myself that was truly a game changer in my career. And she believed that I could assume her role. And in that, she not only believed that I could assume her role, she also had buy-in from the founder and CEO and convinced him that I could also assume her role. And so for me, I would say that was the biggest game changer moment in my career, because in that moment, there was someone who genuinely believed in me with authority and gave me permission to believe in myself, and their faith in my capabilities became a catalyst that transformed what I then went on to do. So I would say that the biggest moment for me is someone else believing in me.
Mm. I guess that must felt very good at the time.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people live with self-limiting beliefs and self-doubt, and I feel like that just puts an unnecessary roof or ceiling over our head. And when someone can come along and break that for you, it really gives you the confidence to really move forward or to get to the next ceiling and have belief that you can get through it on your own.
Yeah, and as you say, sometimes we just need to find someone that can see in us what we cannot see in ourselves. And I think that's maybe due to luck sometimes because it may happen or not, but if it happens, it can really change our lives.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. A lot of times I've said that a lot of my career has been because I was in the right place at the right time. And I think there's a level of that, of luck, being in the right place, but I think that also being in that place, you have to possess the tools and the capabilities to be able to elevate. And so I think it's a combination of both.
Mm. So why do you think this person has choose you and she saw something in yourself that she felt like, oh, okay, you can replace me? What do you think? What was something special that you had at the moment?
I think that it was intentional relationships. So I'm a big believer in cultivating relationships because it's the right thing to do and not because you're going to gain anything out of it. And over the course of that 6 months, her and I had cultivated a relationship and she invested into that relationship, not as a driver for her to shine brighter as the CFO or for her to gain something out of it. It was true intentional investment. And I think from that, she learned that my intentions were well. I was eager to learn and grow. I was also okay with failing and learning from those failures and becoming better from them. So I think that intentional relationship cultivation is a big part of where a lot of that belief came from.
Mm. So based on your experience, what do you think are today the biggest obstacles to upward mobility for anyone else that is dreaming to move up the career ladder?
I think that workplace bias and discrimination is something that a lot of people deal with. And I think it's something that many groups will deal with. So I think that's just there. I also think that lack of mentorship and sponsorship, going back to what we were talking about, cultivating relationships, if we're so afraid of the people below us taking our positions, then you tend to not mentor, pour in, or cultivate those relationships. And I think that creates a barrier for upward mobility. And I also think that fear gets in the way of upward mobility. We have this education to back us, but at the end of the day, getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeves, not being afraid to experience the workplace and the roles, not only in your specific job description or industry, but branching out. In business as a CFO, you're responsible for the financials at the end of the day, but really digging in and understanding that. For me, it was going down and working on the production line instead of just asking why is our cost per kg where it is, it's going down in experience. Why are we having jam ups on the line? Or why is it taking us 15 minutes to load a truck instead of 10? So I think it's getting down and gaining experience in all areas and not just on this single-minded track that people want to be on.
Mm. And so, how can we best position ourselves for success and advancement in our careers? You mentioned a few things now, but is there any other tips you can give?
Yeah, I would say that skill development, regardless of where you want to be, whether it's marketing, finance, sales, operations, I think there is a level of education, career advancement, certificates that you can gain to help in the advancement of your career. Again, I'm going to harp on the fact that strategic relationship building and cultivating relationships, not because you're going to get something out of it, but because you're pouring into someone else. And then I think that also working strategically and delivering consistent results. And really, I would say working for the betterment of the people around you and the betterment of the company or industry that you're in, and not only for the personal gain. Those are the people that you tend to see fly up the ladder.
Mm. We're reaching the end of this episode, but we have still a few more questions. So, first of all, what advice would you give to someone just starting their career and thinking about the future and aiming for upward mobility?
Yeah, again, relationships, I would say that is a big thing that specifically Gen Zs and Gen Xers need to focus on. And I'm a millennial, so I'm also fall into this trap of we're so tied to our phones, texting, emailing, putting the screens away and having face-to-face contact and building those relationships. I would also say develop your financial literacy and business acumen, regardless of your role, understanding how a business makes money and KPIs. I think it will set you apart, taking advantage of trainings that your company or colleagues around you, especially if they're free. LinkedIn is a great place to gain certificates for no monetary investment. And regardless of the business you're in, like I mentioned earlier, I went and got forklift certified. I've been on our production line. I'm active in our marketing. So really taking a holistic approach to understanding the company and industry that you're in and not just the department.
Mm. And what do you think are the challenges in the younger generation to build a relationship? Because maybe nowadays, as you mentioned, we all are very engrossed with technology. So what can they do, but what can everyone do to actually build?
Yeah, I would say stay curious. When we're curious, we tend to step outside of our own box. For me, having an accounting and finance background, it's easy to stay in that accounting box, but having a genuine interest in our marketing and the ROIs attached to that and how we reach our customers, I think that is just a spark for the relationship. There may not be an organic spark between an accountant and a marketing creative brain, but I think just taking that general interest in help me understand how this marketing thing helps our business. And in exchange, I think that you'll see that marketing creative brain will then say, help me understand how the finances affect this, right? When I ask for something or ask for dollars and it's not in the budget or it's going to affect the P&L, help me understand how those decisions are made. I think that just genuine interest then leads into personal interests and cultivates conversations that wouldn't naturally happen between two different departments. But I would say curiosity is the biggest thing. And remembering that at the end of the day, we're all people, right? I chose to be on the admin side of things, and I've got a production crew that it's an amazing group of people and they keep our business afloat, but ensuring that they know how important they are to the business.
Mhm. And so, well, we're reaching really the end now. And the last question that we asked all of our guests is if you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
I'd say trust the discomfort because that's where growth happens. So
Mhm.
many people avoid challenging situations, difficult conversations, or roles that feel beyond their capabilities or reaches. I'd also emphasize, and this is very hard for me as a type A personality, is perfection is the enemy of progression. Um, don't wait until you feel 100% ready. You'll miss countless opportunities. It's better to jump in at 70 or 80% ready and learn the rest along the way. And finally, I would say build relationships before you need them. Um, the best time to develop a meaningful professional connection isn't when you're looking for a job or need a favor. It's right now through genuine interest in others and consistent small acts of support and collaboration.
Mm. I really like that about relationship because sometimes we are too busy to dedicate time to that or feeling, oh, I'm gonna do this. But literally is an investment in our future to dedicate some time. And relationship, as you said, can only be built. They don't happen from today to tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we need to be consistent with that. Thank you, Kash, for joining us today and sharing your inspirational career story with our listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And a last message for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Please leave a review if you enjoyed this episode and tune in next week for a new inspirational episode of the Career Changers. Thank you.